Ready?
Hi.
Hey, yeah. Welcome to Tea is Good, Books Are Better, the podcast where we drink tea and talk about books.
Yay.
Yay! I'm Raven.
And Jess.
That's Jess over there.
Jess.
Yeah, that's Jess. Okay, so this week we read Cry to Heaven by Anne Rice. Well, we read the first 10 chapters, but I don't know if we're going to be able to cover them all in this episode. Probably not, because I wrote a lot.
Holy shit. So we're going to split them in half?
Probably. Look at how much I wrote for just chapter 1.
Wow.
All this. And I was handwriting it, so I had to switch to my computer because I had a hand cramp after writing for just the first chapter.
The first chapter is literally Oh, it is actually longer than I thought it was.
Okay, it's 4 pages, and I wrote about 4 pages,
It
so
did.
we should just read it at this point. Okay, so let's just get started.
Part 1.
All right. Part 1, Chapter 1.
Yay.
Okay.
I see there's a little boo-boo you wrote in the first sentence.
Yes. Well, I kind of figured that out. I did figure that out, but we will talk about that as well. Okay. Part 1, Chapter 1. So the first thing I wrote is that the main character's name is Guido Maffeo.
No.
Because the story starts with him.
I guess.
Guido was castrated when he was 6, so he is part of the castrati. You know what we should start with? By reading the back of this. Okay, let's start by reading the back of the book for those who have no idea what we're talking about.
We're probably gonna
Cry to Heaven. All right. In Cry to Heaven, the acclaimed... Do you want to read this?
Oh, fuck.
So you actually do some talking? Oh, jeez. Here we go. Here it comes, guys. Get ready.
In Cry to Heaven, they claimed Arthur of the Vampire Chronicles.
Did you say Arthur?
Yeah, I did. As in Arthur the Aardvark.
Arthur the Aardvark. The acclaimed Arthur.
Yeah.
Okay, go on.
Of the Vampire Chronicles in the lives of the Mayfair witches.
Have you read that one?
I started reading one, and then I got a smartphone.
Oh, Jesus.
Makes real for us the exquisite and otherworldly society of the 18th century castrati, the delicate and alluring male sopranos, whose graceful bodies and glorious voices brought them the
Adulation
of the royal courts and grand opera houses of Europe. Men who lived as idols, concealing their pain, as they were adored as angels, yet shunned as half men. As we are drawn into their dark and luminous story, as the crowds of
Venetians, Neapolitans,
and Romans, noblemen and peasants, musicians,
I don't know what that word is. Prelates,
princes, saints, and
intriguers
swirl around them. Anne Rice brings us into the sweep of 18th century Italian life, into the decadence beneath the shimmering surface of Venice, and wild frivolity.
Yeah.
Frivolity of Naples. In the magnetic terror of its shadow.
Vesuvius.
It is a novel that only Anne Rice could have written, taken us into a heartbreaking and enchanting moment in history, a time of great ambition and great suffering, a tale that challenges our deepest image of the masculine and the feminine.
Damn! You know how in class when like the teacher asks someone to read out like from the textbook and it's like super cringy? That was what we just witnessed.
Oh, so supportive.
Love you. Okay. Wait, first we should talk about our tea.
What tea are we drinking?
We're drinking tea. Oh my god, we are all over the place. This is the best podcast ever.
I know.
What tea are we drinking, Jess? And then we'll get into Cry to Heaven.
It's Blueberry Bliss.
From where?
Tivana.
Is it delicious?
I haven't sipped it yet, actually.
pretty delicious.
Tastes like blueberries.
It's tea. All right, moving on.
Yay.
We're going to be sipping that. All right. So the first thing I wrote for part 1, chapter 1 is that the main character is Guido Maffeo, who was castrated when he was 6. So because the book starts with Guido, I naturally assumed he was the main character.
Nope.
But apparently I'm wrong. So I did start to gather that I'm probably wrong as I continue to read. But at the time, I assumed he was the main character. So he was castrated when he was 6, and the book begins with a memory of the castration.
Yeah, so the book starts off with a detailed castration of a young boy.
6-year-old.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, so I have to admit it is a good hook.
Yeah,
so if you're like just picking up the book to like read the first chapter to decide if you want to read more, like you're gonna get kind of hooked. A bit disturbed, but also hooked.
Yeah, it's disturbing.
Yeah. So Guido was taken from his mother from a life of poverty and cruelty and was shown kindness by the men who ended up making him a eunuch.
He was sold.
Well, okay, yes, but we don't know that at this time.
Okay.
Yes, so a eunuch is also a man who has been castrated. Is there multiple names for this? Eunuch, castrati, are they all the same thing?
Yeah.
Okay. Is there another one I'm missing?
Languages, I guess.
Oh, okay. So Guido was given a good meal and a soft bed, a bath, a massage, attention, red wine, and honey, and then got his dick cut off.
I think just his testicles.
Yeah. It's just fun to say he got his dick cut off.
Cut off his dick.
Okay, they cut off his testes.
Mm-hmm.
But they treated him well beforehand, so, you know.
And after. He's grateful for his life.
So, yeah, he's living the life. Okay, so I realized pretty much right away that Anne Rice's writing is very sophisticated.
Ooh.
But still easy to follow along, which I think is sort of a hard line to walk. And it's clear that by this point she has already been writing for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
Like, this is definitely not a first novel. There's lots of sensory detail. Sheets that smelled of crushed green leaves, soreness between his legs, the soft-spoken voices of the men. So lots of sensory detail that really kind of get you into the world. The tone is also clear right from the get-go. It's like a dark gothic drama.
Oh, yeah, that's Anne Rice.
Yeah. It seems like that's definitely her thing. Is that I'm assuming all of her books are kind of in the same genre.
Yep.
Okay. All right, so as I said already, the first line is a great hook and sets the stage for the entire story. Something that I've learned in creative writing is how important a first sentence is. So what is the first sentence? Guido Maffeo was castrated when he was 6 years old and sent to study with the finest singing masters in Naples. So yeah, the first thing you get about this character is that he was castrated when he was frickin' 6. So
very young, I suppose.
Yeah, great hook. All right, so then we get a summary of the setting of the world that we're in, which is the 18th century, specifically 1715 in Naples. So Anne Rice grounds the reader in time with sentences like, Benjamin Franklin was 9 years old and Galileo had been dead for 73... Jesus.
I appreciated that, actually. I was like, oh, that really sets this.
Galileo had been dead for 73 years and Isaac Newton was an old man. So yeah, it definitely grounds the reader in time, and I also appreciated it. It's good for someone who doesn't really know, like, what kind of stuff was going on back at that time.
I'm not a history buff.
Exactly.
Thanks, Anne.
Yeah, so it was helpful. But definitely an interesting technique that I've never seen before. Yeah, I don't think I've ever read that anywhere else. Mm-hmm. But it is effective also because it doesn't just kind of come out of nowhere. The writer ties it back to Guido, but Guido knew nothing of the world, is what she says. So she ties it all back to him, and it works really well. Okay, so then we learn more about Guido. He doesn't speak the language. He thinks Naples is magnificent, as well as the clothing that he's given. He's happy to be one of the castrati, which I found completely unexpected. Because specifically you had told me that this was going to be a revenge story. So I thought, like, right away we were going to just jump right into it. And, like, he wants to get back at these people who cut off his dick.
Nope. Wrong guy.
Yes. Okay, well, spoilers.
Oh, sorry.
Jesus. Calm down. Okay. So Guido had a great soprano voice. His teachers all loved him. He learns over time that not everyone is subjected to the knife as he was. That soprano singers are essentially worshipped all over the world, which I also did not know of that time, but I'm assuming that it was true, like in real life.
I did some Googling,
Yeah. Okay. So, confirmed. Hundreds more castrati were made each year, and he also learns over time that his parents sold him outright. So there we go. We find out he was sold when he finds out he was sold. So he becomes the lead singer in the choir, and his rewards were bomb as fuck. He got instruments, blankets, coats. Dude, what did he not have? He was truly living the Italian dream.
Yeah. It's like, thanks, Mom, for selling me.
I love being...
Best thing you could have done for me, Mom.
Yeah, and have my dick cut off. It's the best thing that ever happened to me.
Testes. He has a wiener.
Okay, so immediately I was interested in why Anne Rice was so interested in the castrati. I don't know if you know anything about this, but I was wondering like how she learned about it and why she wanted to write a story about it. Do you know anything about that? No? Okay.
I apologize. I didn't look into
That's fine.
that.
Either way, like, to me, who doesn't know anything on the subject,
Yeah.
it feels very realistic, and it's definitely a unique subject matter. There's a lot of, like, unexpected things that I wouldn't think would be true, but they feel true. Just, like, I'm assuming she did her research, and a lot of it.
But I wouldn't, like, be surprised if she did weave, like, fictional, like, things in there.
Yeah, of course. Taking a bit of creative license. You kind of have to.
Yeah.
Because the world is boring. All right. So I don't know if this is interesting at all, but I tried listening to music as I was reading, because you said that you do that all the time.
I do.
In our last episode, you said this. And I was listening to a playlist on Spotify that was just called reading music.
Oh, what is that?
Well, it was playing this song called Rescue Me by Dario Marianelli, Benjamin Wallfish, and the English Chamber Orchestra from the movie Atonement. And it just felt so perfect to like what I was reading at the time.
That's fantastic.
Yeah, I don't know if like we can't play it, 'cause we'll get friggin' like crucified, but
shut down.
But if you want to look it up and listen, do it. Rescue Me by Dario Marianelli. All right. Something else I noticed, that the story is very expositional so far. Do you know what that means? Do you know the difference between exposition and scene?
No.
No? Okay. That's fine. A scene is basically like when the reader is directly... Jesus, I can't talk today. When the reader is directly in the story. So a scene often has dialogue and things happening, like in the present. Exposition is more like telling the reader what has happened or what, sort of like what's going on around. Does that make sense?
So like
I feel like I want to look up
color?
an actual definition.
You know what I wrote for chapter 1? Welcome to castration! Exclamation mark.
Right, okay. This is a good way to describe it.
Cool.
Scene is showing. It's putting the reader like right into the story. Exposition is telling the reader that something happened without putting them into the story. Does that make sense?
Without putting the reader into the story?
Yeah. It's basically like, once upon a time, there was a girl named Cinderella and she lived in a castle. That's exposition.
Yeah.
A scene would be more like, Cinderella woke up and smelled the morning coffee.
Oh.
And she said to her lover, "Morning, babe."
Oh.
Do you see the difference?
Yes.
Okay. So far in this book, it's very expositional.
It's
which
pretty Anne Rice.
Yeah, which is, it's a tactic. But we can get into whether it works or not later.
Cool.
Okay. So basically we're going through Guido's early years with occasional half scenes and dialogue, but mostly exposition. So we learn how Guido looks as he grows up. He has a heavy form, which is unlike the other eunuchs. Curly brown hair, a sensuous mouth, a flattened nose from a childhood fall, and brown eyes that are wily and brutal.
Ooh, so
Yeah.
he's got a resting bitch face. That's how I assume. Yeah.
Nice. I like that. People basically can't agree whether he's ugly or beautiful. And I feel like I've definitely seen people like that.
I think it's the resting bitch face.
Yeah. That makes me think of Bellatrix Lestrange. Like how...
The actress?
No,
Or
no.
the character?
How Jesus.
Roland?
How Rowling describes her as, like, she could have been beautiful if she wasn't, like... so, like,
yeah, I remember
evil
that.
and dark looking kind of thing.
She wasn't so deranged. Okay?
Yeah,
She
exactly.
cleaned up her face.
And wasn't in Azkaban for a million years. Okay, so Guido exudes menace, but is quite gentle, and his peers all like him.
Aww.
Alright, Guido. I like you.
I like you too.
Alright, so then we finally get a solid scene. When he's 15, Guido is called to the office of the maestro, where he's told that in December of 1727, he would appear in his first opera. Woo!
Whoop, whoop.
In Rome as the primo uomo.
Congrats.
So I didn't know what a primo uomo was, but it sounded important. Basically, I looked it up. I assume you knew what it was right away. No? No. Okay. Did you have to look it up also?
Yeah. I
Yeah.
did.
This time too, or did you
Sounds
know
like
already?
stage.
Yeah. Well, that sounds like an important role.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, it's the male form of a prima donna.
Aww.
Yeah, and it means a first man, directly translated. All right, so being primo uomo in Rome is every singer's dream, apparently. So Guido is obviously very excited and in a state of disbelief. As he leaves the maestro's office, he's stopped by Gino and Alfredo, who are the Conservatorio's rising stars, also eunuchs. And they invite him to come to town with them to celebrate, as he is now one of them.
BFFs for life!
And that's the end of chapter 1. Yay!
Yay!
So, was there anything you wanted to say?
It was basically just the introduction to castration, the castrati, and Guido.
Yes.
Who is?
It was definitely an introduction.
Mm-hmm.
That's for sure. All right. Chapter 2 is when I had to switch to typing because I could not write by hand anymore.
Your hand cramped. You
I
have too
had-
much
Yeah.
to say.
Hand cramps. Let me take a sip.
So, this is introduction to the actual main character.
Mm-hmm. So we have, in chapter 2, a perspective shift to Tonio Tresci.
Tonio.
And chapter 2 also starts with a great hook. When Tonio Tresci was 5 years old, his mother pushed him down the stairs.
Yes.
I was like, damn!
Problematic relationship. Problematic
Yeah.
mother.
Yep. It's clear right from the get-go that his mother was abusive. But she had not meant to push him down the stairs that time. She had only meant to slap him.
You
You know, she had all good intentions.
Yeah. 5 years old.
So after the slap, which tosses him down the stairs, he hides from her in the house, which
broke
is
my heart.
yeah, the huge house,
Really
huge and
set the
crumbling.
scene. Uh-huh.
Important detail. And he knows every nook and cranny because he's so used to hiding, which is very telling
Yeah.
of
Him and his mama.
of what he's had to deal with.
Mm-hmm.
Eventually, he goes back to his mother, angry and hurt and bent on revenge.
Aww.
This cute.
You're
He's like
a little
5.
5-year-old.
Yeah,
He's bent on revenge. It's just.
It is really heartbreaking.
Oh my god.
But when he sees her sobbing about hurting him, he falls straight into her arms.
Mm-hmm.
And it's pretty sad. So a line that I noticed and picked out was, she was little more than a girl herself, but he didn't know it.
Yeah, I also wrote down, did you notice when it said that she's not much older than him?
Yeah, so not much older than a girl herself. So I'm assuming that she's like a teen or a preteen.
In my brain, it says she gave birth to him when she was around 13. I don't know where I read that in the book, but it's remembered from when I used to read it.
Oh, okay.
Spoilers.
Yeah, that was a spoiler.
And
you'll see why. Something else that I picked out from this line is that it means we are actually not entirely in Tonio's perspective. Yeah. How close we are to a character's mind and thoughts is called psychic distance in creative writing. So the distance here is a bit farther than normal.
Mm-hmm.
I was actually trying something similar in class with my own fantasy story, but my prof didn't really seem to like it. Yeah. Well, I was trying something different, and, you know, if it doesn't work, it doesn't work, which is fine. But I'm not sure if that was just, like, her own personal preferences.
Yeah.
Or if it actually wasn't working. Because I was kind of enjoying doing it. Like, it was kind of interesting.
Maybe you keep practicing it better and better as you read Anne Rice.
Yeah.
Hers.
I also feel like, though, it needs to be really consistent.
Yeah.
And I probably wasn't consistent. Like, I was probably dipping into his head, like, my character's head, like, really deeply, and then would just randomly pop out, which is probably what made it seem, like, kind of odd. But yeah, interesting.
Practice makes perfect.
So then there's a line from Tonio's thoughts. If I hold her, then she'll stay as she is now, and that other creature won't come out of her to hurt me. Which is very sad, also feels very real, and it's like exactly what a child would think. Like it's, the maturity level is clear. So Tonio's mother makes it up to him by taking him to San Marco to see his father in procession. So at this point I did not know what this means because I did not know what his father's position was, but we'll get to that. Right now, his father's the Grand Counselor of the great church called the Ducal Chapel of the Doge.
Ooh. The Doge.
It's D-O-G-E. All I saw was the meme. The Ducal Chapel of the Doge. And I put in brackets, ha. Something else it says is that Tonio's nurses did not need him to go, or they didn't want him to go.
Oh.
And I was like, what the hell does he need nurses for? Like, is this normal, or is this for something that we don't know about yet?
I think it's normal.
Yeah.
Wealthy.
Yeah.
Families. Yeah.
So they dress all fancy and they go to the church.
Yay!
And I was also listening to another song at this time, which felt really appropriate.
Oh?
If you want to listen, it's called Nocturne in a Minor by Chad Lawson. Moving on. Okay, so they see his father, and I thought he had a great description.
Oh, yeah.
The tall, bone-thin figure of Andrea Trushy came into view, sleeves down to the floor, his white hair the shape of a lion's mane, his deep-set, pale eyes fixed like those of a statue before him. So you just get, like, a good sense
of,
like,
every description of him, I'm like, wow, I can really see him.
Yeah, she says something else, too, that I never wrote down, but it's, like, his powdery fingers.
Yeah.
Which is, like, what the hell does that mean?
And
but I also know exactly
I
what it
totally
means.
knew it. Like, there's some old people who have, like,
it's like
fingers like that.
Yeah, crazy. Really good description.
Mm-hmm.
So there's a really cute moment where Tonio calls out to his daddy, and they catch Papa! They catch each other's eye, and Andrea smiles all big, and it's really cute.
Mm-hmm.
So the singing begins, and Tonio sees the singers up in a loft, and he wriggles away from his mother and runs towards them. So at this point, I immediately started suspecting that Guido might be part of that singing group, because, you know, he was, like, going to be sent to Rome, and blah, blah, blah.
Oh, no. He's not a lowly church singer. He's a, what, primo
uomo. I'm a primo uomo, bitch. I don't sing in churches.
Yeah, he's too good for that.
Yeah, so, well, that's what I was suspecting at the time. I was very wrong, but we'll get to that. Tonio climbs the stairs and comes face to face with a giant of a man, who I was convinced was Guido.
Aww.
Because he was described the same.
Yeah, pretty big.
The same way, like, big and leading the choir. So Tonio starts to sing along, and Guido, not Guido, lifts him up, and they sing together. And some super sweet imagery. Tonio is enchanted by this man's singing voice. Afterwards, the singer hands Tonio back to his mother, and his mother calls him Alessandro. So he was not Guido, and I was very disappointed. Alright, let me take a sip. Okay. So Tonio asks his mother if he'll ever be able to sing like Alessandro, and she basically laughs in his face and says no. So Alessandro is obviously a eunuch. It was not told to us at this time, but I just assumed that Tonio's mother did not intend to cut her son's dick off.
Yeah,
and by dick I mean balls.
Like he's the last of the Tresci.
Yeah. Spoilers. We'll get to that.
Okay.
But yes, very intentionally, she does not want to cut her son's balls off. All right, so back home, The house is all creaky and there are lights on the water outside, and I was a little confused about what was going on here. Tonio's mother tells him that the men of state were going to venerate the relics on San Giorgio, and Tonio feels dread for some reason, and it's been a while since I read this part, but I was very much like, what the fuck is going on? Do you remember what was happening?
Where is it?
Tonio's mother tells him the men of state were going to venerate the relics on San Giorgio.
I'm thinking that's like art. Like, I mean, oh shit.
Sorry, go on.
Like statues, you know, like Italian art statues, or the architecture. Maybe they're like rebuilding or taken down, and I don't know how to explain.
Okay, I was, I guess, just confused about why it was important.
Maybe he just loved how beautiful it was, and he appreciated it when he left his boring ass crusty house.
It said he felt dread, just like watching the lights on the water and that sort of thing. So I was like, huh? Like, why are we bringing this up? Why is this important? Maybe it comes up later. Yeah. I don't remember. Whoops. Moving on.
Chapter 3. Oh, yeah. Oh, I just wrote here, Mama is obviously mentally ill.
Yes, that does become very clear.
The way he, like, describes her from the outside, it's definitely, like, she seems to be back and forth. Her mood swings are really tense. From depression to, what's that word?
Melancholia.
Manic and melancholy. Back and forth. Boom, 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 boom.
Yeah, they do sort of focus in on that a bit more later. So we will get to that. So Tonio is awakened that night by music out on the street. He also finds out his father... Oh, no, not him. We find out that his father never sleeps with him and his mother. Which, interesting detail. So he goes to the window and sings along and remembers Alessandro. He thinks about how the other tall men he had known had to bend to touch him, but how Alessandro had scooped him up, like, really easily. And I also was not sure of the meaning behind this, but I found out later, and we'll get to that. We end the chapter with, Tonio was 7 years old before he learned Alessandro and the other tall singers were eunuchs. Bam, I'm a genius. I knew it all along. Not that it wasn't obvious. So, that's the end of chapter 2, and I was wondering why the perspective shift and how the narratives of Tonio and Guido will collide. Don't spoil it. Don't spoil it. But I'm assuming their narratives will collide. Okay. Chapter 3. By this point, I was learning that it was quite difficult to summarize the chapters because they're so exposition heavy. I feel like it's a lot easier with scenes. You'd be like, this happens, then this happens, and this happens.
Yeah, especially with some chapters that are just building the world and the story.
Exactly. So I was like, not sure what's important. Like, what do I need to note down and what do I need to ignore? You know, so I tried my best, but if I end up missing something, then let me know.
Sure thing.
All right. By the time he's 9, Tonio has learned what it means to be a eunuch. So yes, we're still in Tonio's perspective. He learns what part of them is cut off to become a eunuch. Also, apparently, their height and long limbs, which explains Alessandro not having to lean down to lift him, is a result of their castration as well, because their bones don't harden properly. And I was like, what? Is this real?
Yeah.
I guess.
You learn this when it comes to, like, transgendered people, like, going to female will take an estrogen, like, their bones are big and set, and it's something that they can't fix because of testosterone. It makes your bones bigger. Makes you bigger.
Interesting. So when people say they have big bones, they're not lying. If they're men.
Yeah. But, like, without testosterone, just smaller body, smaller bones.
But, like the women. Long limbs thing is, like,
I guess men are just naturally, some are just taller, and then without the testosterone you just look gangly.
Yeah, I guess so. But I was like, I guess when I tried to picture this, I pictured, like, Slender Man or something. Like, it wasn't pleasant. But I was like, I need to, like, I'm sure they did not look like Slender Man. Okay. So Tonio doesn't get to visit the opera because he's too young, which upsets him when his mother goes, but he cannot.
Aww.
Tonio sometimes sees Alessandro around outside the church and wonders if he's happy with his life.
Basically, he likes Alessandro and is really liking Alessandro. Yes. Idolizing him, like, this the great singer.
Yes.
I want to be a singer.
He wonders yeah, what I said, he wonders if he's happy with his life, except in a more childish way of thinking. Like, he says, does he cry? Does he want to run away? Which is also very telling about how Tonio feels about his life. Yeah. We'll get to that. Yeah. We learn that Tonio is Mark Antonio Tresci, the son of Andrea Tresci, who is an extremely powerful, important individual. He was once commander of the galleys of the Serenissima on foreign seas, whatever that means.
Powerful, noble family.
Yes. Andrea also served in the most serene Senate and was now elected onto the Council of Three, which seems like it's judge, jury, and executioner, basically, for Naples. Nope, Venice. Were they? Guido's in Naples.
You've confused me now.
I think they're in Venice.
Okay.
They're in Venice.
They're somewhere in Italy.
All right. So Tonio has quite the legacy to live up to. We learn that Tonio's mother is Andrea's second wife. His first wife and their 3 sons are all dead. What happened? We'll find out. Don't spoil it. So there are portraits hung all over their house, their giant crumbling house, of members of the Tresci family, including Tonio's half-brothers. And it kind of seems like he longs for them. He wants to eat dinner with them and listen to their stories and just have them be present.
He's just lonely.
He is lonely.
He's stuck in this empty giant house with his mom.
Yes. So at this point, I didn't really, quite connect that. So I was like, I found it kind of interesting as someone who did grow up with siblings. I was like, does someone who doesn't have siblings really want siblings that bad? But I guess if you're living in a giant house that's completely empty and your father's never around and your mother's racked with depression, then you're gonna want some sane people around.
Yeah, at least someone to talk to.
So Tonio realizes over time that he would not be here if not for the death of his brothers. They were basically only born to continue the family name, and because they had not had any children, Tonio's father took a second wife and had Tonio. It doesn't explain how Tonio realizes this, although I suppose he could have overheard snippets of conversation between nurses or something and just pieced it together over time.
Yeah, or maybe he just knows how noble families work.
Yeah.
You gotta pass on the family line.
Yes, exactly. The responsibility, I'm sure, stresses him out. So Tonio fantasizes about having a big family, all living in the same house, and his father being around often, but the truth is that he seldom sees his father. So it was always an exciting occasion when Andrea would send for his son. His nurse, Lena, would dress him up all fancy and send him to the grand salon of the main floor. So then it drops us into scene again. Woohoo! I'm always a fan of scene. Yay! So Tonio bows to his father, and his father basically sweeps him up and hugs him tightly and kisses him. He's proud and affectionate.
Man.
And not what I would expect.
I love their relationship.
Yeah.
It's adorable.
It is really cute. Again, yeah. Not what I would expect from someone with so much, I don't know, maybe I'm just super cynical and I'm just a dick or something, but I was like, I don't know. I guess I was wondering if it was only because this boy is a ticket to continue the Tresci line that his father loves him so much.
But he's lost 3 other sons.
Yeah. So it does make sense why he would be so affectionate and loving of his son. But why is he never around? We'll get to that. Okay. So it turns out Tresci is the last of his line to bear the name. He learns his father plans on marrying him young and preparing him for a life of duty. So I'm kind of right, but
It's making them babies.
Yeah.
Specifically sons.
Yeah. No one wants girls.
Why do you want a girl?
That freaking reminds me of
useless
that time with Dad when he was explaining why all his children were special, and he says that you were a miracle baby because you almost died during childbirth or something.
Yeah, 2 months premature. Oh my god.
Yeah, so you were a miracle baby, and that's what makes you special.
Cool.
And I got straight A's, and that's what made me special.
Oh no.
And what he said made Eric special, our brother, was that he would continue the family name. He actually fucking said that. Do you remember this?
No, I have no memory of this.
Yeah, he said that he's he's my son. He'll continue the Egan name. I mean, we'll bleep that out. He'll continue the name. And I was like, are you actually fucking kidding me right now? So basically, you had to almost die. I had to work my ass off for us to be special, and Eric just had to be born with a penis. Jesus.
The penis guarantees the name when he gets married. Did you not know this?
I'm sorry, I thought it was 2018.
Oh shit. What?
Like, names actually fucking matter anymore. Anyway. Tonio watches the world through his windows and longs to be out there, but is imprisoned in his own home.
Mm-hmm.
He is 13 now, and his days are filled with non-stop tutors and learning, including French, poetry, counterpoint, whatever that is, Latin, Italian, English, fencing, dancing, and socialization.
Conversation.
Yes. Did you know what counterpoint is? Because I don't know what that is.
No, if I had my phone, I would quickly Google this.
Okay, fine. We'll look it up. I looked up counterpoint, and it is the art or technique of setting, writing, or playing a melody or melodies in conjunction with another. So music, basically. All right.
Sounds relevant to Tonio.
Yes, it does. So when Tonio manages to slip away, he would escape to the neglected rooms in the bowels of the house and paw through his family's old archives, and he would imagine being a part of their dangerous adventures.
Oh.
All in all, poor Tonio is quite miserable and afraid, but he can't quite pinpoint why. His father's extremely old, his mother extremely young, and she had been unhappy his whole life. He senses secrets, hearing things whispered and denied between servants in the halls. So I wrote that I could probably learn a lot from this chapter about how to capture this essence of duty and responsibility and expectation, because I sort of have a character dealing with similar stuff.
Ooh.
Yeah, so I could read this chapter again and learn a lot from it.
Mm-hmm.
Because she does a really good job, of, like, capturing that feeling.
Yeah, I can, like, really understand his stress of being a parents like that, and servants whispering.
Yeah.
Saying smack.
Yeah, there's a lot of stuff going on.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the end of chapter 3. So this story was written in 1982. Did you realize that?
Ooh, no, I would have been 1 years old. 1 years, plural.
Babe, no, you were not alive yet. 1982.
Oh, 82. I said 92.
No, 1982.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That's 9 years before I was born.
So it's an old book. And I think it does show in the heavy exposition at the forefront of the novel. I honestly don't know if Anne Rice could get away with the heavy exposition nowadays. She is an extremely skilled writer, and I'm really excited to be reading this because I think I could learn a lot from her, but readers definitely have a lot less patience with exposition nowadays.
Probably.
Yes, which is why with stuff like fantasy, like Tolkien stuff would not work anymore.
No.
If it was written nowadays, it would not get published.
No.
He has a whole chapter dedicated to explaining what a hobbit is.
Yeah, I'm like reading one chapter of Fellowship of the Ring, and just like putting it down.
Mm-hmm.
And letting it gather dust.
It's hard to get through. Yes. So yeah, lots of exposition in Cry to Heaven so far, but I do think she keeps it interesting, so I'll give her that. It's a lot of backstory, but she's also building tension, and she's world building, and she's developing character and so on. So it all has
really
intention,
know
yeah.
Tonio.
Yes. All right. So chapter 4. We're back to Guido.
Yeah, Guido.
Was there anything you wanted to say about chapter 3? No?
I said, no, chapter 3, it was just talking about the Tresci family.
Okay.
That's all I wrote. It's like, introduction to the Tresci.
I like your,
Tresci's.
yeah. So basically we start with intro to Guido, and then chapter 2 we have intro to Tonio, and then chapter 3, intro to the Trescis. What do we have for chapter 4?
I have Guido is a horny bugger.
Introduction to
I wasn't at the toilet when I was reading this, and I had forgotten that was so soon. I was like, wow.
Oh shit.
Took me by surprise.
While you were in the toilet? Is that what you said? Yeah. You're just like in the middle of taking a dump, and then it just sucks back up.
I'm just like reading it.
right, so yes, we are back to Guido. His life is grueling work now that he's been chosen for the stage.
Yeah.
But a passion awakens in him, even though he thought he could feel no passion. Which is sad and a little confusing because I was under the impression that he was passionate about music, at least to a certain degree.
You're probably confused of what she was meaning by passion.
Oh. All right. So eunuchs are not allowed to marry because marriage is just for creating children. Of course.
Sounds
Duh.
just like Christianity to me.
Yeah. But Guido is attracted to the celibate life anyway. He had accepted his fate, but he starts having kinky dreams of a female singer he's seen on stage before.
Mm-hmm.
And he starts checking out Gino's ankles in
Shit.
real life. And shit, Gino, you
Oh
got
my
them
God,
ankles.
Gino. Show off those ankles, yo.
Yes, in case you don't remember, Gino is his friend,
Fellow eunuch.
fellow eunuch.
Opera singer.
Yes.
At the Elite Three.
Yes. Is that what they are?
Yeah.
Okay. On one afternoon, he can't sing at all because he's checking out the tight-fitting coat of a young male maestro.
Damn it, you perv.
Jeez, Guido.
Keep it in your pants.
So this maestro catches his eye and smiles at him and puts his hand in his nether regions. So it's all like, is he simply adjusting his package or is it something less innocent?
Ooh.
Ooh, I guess we'll find out. It was the latter. So they keep looking at each other over dinner and the rest of the evening. Later, as Guido is wandering the empty corridors, he spots the maestro in his room, and the maestro calls out to him, "Oh, damn.
Oh,
Oh, damn, it's going down." So Guido goes in, closes the door behind him, and then bam, it's happening. The maestro's dick is out, and it's in Guido's mouth, and this guy's married with children, by the way.
Doesn't matter. That's a eunuch.
Oh, geez, he doesn't count.
Apparently not.
After it's over, Guido immediately feels sick. From guilt, I'm assuming. But then the maestro says to him, "You make them knee to you, and you'll learn. You'll learn when you hear those bravos in your ears when they're pelting you with tributes and flowers." So I had no idea what he was talking about.
He's
but I
saying,
was
dang,
disturbed.
your fame, you can get laid. You're gonna get laid.
That's what he was saying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
As an opera singer, you can get laid.
You get all the pussy and all the dick.
Yeah.
Alright, so that was the end of chapter 4. Introduction to sex. Alright.
Guido. Like, he's like in his teens. What, early teens?
He was 17 at that point, I think.
Oh, shit.
17, yeah.
Late teens.
Yes. Alright, chapter 5. We are back to Tonio.
Yeah, Tonio. Chapter 5.
Back to
We're learning
Tonio.
more about Mariana. Okay.
Alright. Tonio is 13 now, and his mother, who is named Mariana, does not hit him anymore. Good.
Nice job.
Yes. He's her height. Apparently she's also dark-skinned, but he turned out fair like his father. She's also described as having Byzantine eyes multiple times.
Byzantine?
Byzantine eyes. So I looked up, I should know this because I took frickin' art history so many times, but Byzantine is a type of, like, art form.
It's close-set eyes, right? I remember her saying lots of close-set. But...
Byzantine eyes.
Oh, so like Mona Lisa? It looks like Mona Lisa to me.
Yeah.
Like how close the eyes are to the nose.
I think it's more like the Byzantine eye is styled and characterized by a slightly flattened pupil. The drawing of the eyelids never touch one another at the corner of the eye. That's interesting. So basically they're supposed to be like huge eyes with penetrating gazes.
Alien eyes.
Yes, so Mariana's an alien. Tonio and Mariana like to dance together, and they would lean out the back windows to watch the fair outside and learn some more dance moves. He comes to learn she was much more the child than he was. He learned to mask his own fears so as to not upset her. He would distract her and soothe her with music. And that is not a responsibility a child should have.
Never.
So this is some pretty messed up shit.
Mm-hmm.
His mother grew up on music. It was a big part of her childhood. So she was obviously delighted when she realized Tonio had inherited her voice. She taught him his very first songs. So even when she was at her worst, drunk and angry, he would lure her over to the piano and play, and she would join him singing. And I keep writing down songs that I was listening to at the time because they felt so appropriate. This one's called Edward at Her Bed, by the City of Prague Philharmonic Orchestra. So listen to that. Moving on. It's clear that Tonio and Mariana have a pretty complex relationship. She's constantly asking him whether he loves her, and he's forced to remind her that he does, which is also super messed up.
Super emotionally abusive.
Yeah. Each day he can feel whether she's happy or sad, and obviously it affects him, and he feels the need to be there for her all the time. So basically she's become the child and he's become the parent. Which is so wrong.
He's responsible for her emotional
well-being.
Yep.
Yeah. He realizes that his loneliness as a child was partly the result of her reclusiveness, and he doesn't understand why she doesn't make friends with the ladies of the Pieta. Whenever Andrea's cousin, Katrina Lasani, came to visit, she would make it brief out of kindness. She was always in bright colors, whereas Mariana was always in black, and Katrina would basically have a one-sided conversation with Mariana, because Mariana would not respond.
Probably one-word answers.
Yeah,
Yes.
just like, no.
Yeah.
Exactly. Sometimes Katrina would have her escort with her, also known as her cavalier servente. I also did not know what this was.
Sounds fancy.
Yeah, so I looked it up, and it is a professed gallant, a man who pays special attention to women, and perhaps lover of a married woman. So he escorts her to events and stuff, and not a eunuch, no.
Okay.
And maybe has sex with her, even though she's married.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. A eunuch, because he can't knock her up.
Oh, I don't know. It doesn't say whether he was a eunuch or not. So Tonio thinks that maybe if his mother had an escort, like this guy, she would go out more and be happier and things would be better.
Get that dick!
But neither Tonio or his father really approve of these cavalier serventes. So Tonio even feels jealous at the idea of another man being close to his mother.
Oh!
He wants to protect his mother, to save her. He would want to be her cavalier servente if that were possible.
It sounds like a victim,
but I sense it's not. It sounds like what?
Like, it really sounds like someone, like, in an abusive relationship who's just really stuck in there.
Yes, you're right. You are right. Almost even like that. What's it called when you get, like, kidnapped and you...
I know that.
What's the word for that? Y'all know what I'm talking about. Okay. Anyway.
Brain farts. Wow.
Yeah. So, at this point, I started to get, like, I was, like, hoping that it would not get incestual. Just because I would not know how far Anne Rice would go, but I assume she would go that far.
Oh my god.
Yes.
Yeah, I don't think I would have brought this book to you if it was that nasty.
Oh, but them getting their dicks cut off is fine.
Testicles.
Oh, I'm sorry. That's way better. Okay, so that's the end of chapter 5. We can stop there.
Yeah, I think we should stop because I have a few questions starting at chapter 8. Not a few questions, probably 8 questions per.
Okay, so we're going to stop going through the chapters at that point. That's the end of chapter 5. So in our next episode, we'll do chapters 6 to 10. But for now, I would like to ask you, Jessica, how was rereading it for you?
Well, it's been years, right? And I was, again, as I said, with chapter 4, I was shocked. I haven't read books like that in a long time. I was like,
with just like the very in your face, like
whoop, there's a dick in his mouth.
Yep.
And the description of the semen, of knowing that he has to swallow it fast, otherwise it'll make him sick.
Oh,
and I'm
my
like,
God. This poor kid.
I didn't need to know that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Yeah. For me, reading it felt kind of like homework. Just because I'm used to like reading books and taking notes on them for class.
Yeah.
And it took a surprising amount of time. Like I could only do 1 or 2 chapters a day.
I'm shocked because I was like, why is it taking her so long to read these tiny chapters?
Because I was taking notes on...
Yeah.
And it was also just determining, like, what do I actually need to write down and what can I ignore? What's important and what's not? Which, I think is a lot more difficult because it's so expositional.
Yeah.
I'm hoping there's more scenes on the way. I don't know, though. You would know, not me. Was anything about the experience different? For this time reading it? Like, were you looking more closely, or did you notice anything you hadn't noticed before?
Like, I'm just catching on more on Tonio's emotions towards his mother and who his mother is a lot faster than I did when I was younger. Because when I was younger, I didn't really understand.
Yeah, we're a bit
Things
more
like
woke
mental
now.
illness or anything like that. I didn't really understand, but now I'm like, oh shit,
Yeah.
oh snap.
Yeah, and I do think Anne Rice does a really good job of capturing it and like being respectful about it, but also being realistic.
Yeah, I really like that.
Yeah. She's not like, you know, romanticizing it in any way, but she's also not making it like sound like Mariana's the
crazy
devil
or something.
Yeah, like
this is a woman who's suffering.
Yeah, and I do really appreciate the way that Anne Rice handled it, and it makes me think that she's probably had experience with someone like that in real life.
Most likely.
So at this point in the book, I was confused about who the main character was because we had gone back and forth, but my guess would have been Tonio, and you have confirmed Tonio is the main character.
Tonio's the main character.
Okay, and I'm assuming it is also his revenge story since he is the main character, but I am super interested to see how Guido and Tonio are going to meet. Ooh. And if it doesn't happen, I'm gonna lose my shit.
You're like, what the hell is
Yeah, I'd be like, what the fuck?
Guido?
Right.
This Guido's name reminded me of Jersey Shore, so how they call all the men Guidos.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I was thinking of now.
Yeah, that's funny.
Yeah, so what do you think of Anne Rice? My favorite Arthur of all time.
Arthur? Why do you always say Arthur?
Author.
There you go.
Because my favorite show of all time is Arthur.
I did not know that you loved Arthur that much.
Having fun.
Is it hard if you got a library card? That's why, because it's all about them books.
All about them books, yeah. Our whole childhood was them library cards.
So, what I think of Anne Rice?
Yeah, and her romantic gothic style of writing.
Right.
Which is what really enamored me.
I think I've basically said everything already, but I can sum it up. Very sophisticated writer, obviously very experienced. I am curious to see how, read her first novel and see how it would be different from this one. Even if I was just to read the first chapter or something.
Yeah.
But yeah, obviously very skilled writer. The exposition's a bit much for me.
Yeah.
I'm just a modern reader, I guess, so I'm pretty impatient.
Yeah.
And it's hard for breaking it down. This is a tough book to tackle, first of all. The subject matter, definitely super interesting, super unique.
Even though it's a little bit difficult, some parts are kind of difficult to read.
Yeah, I would agree with that. But you know what? We've said this in the first episode. Books sometimes take work. And you gotta put that effort in. The writer put the effort in, you gotta put the effort in.
A lot of time, these books end up being totally worth it.
Yeah, of course. And, you know, there have been so many good quotes about, fiction. People don't remember... Oh, what is this quote?
Oh, no.
People don't remember facts, they remember stories. I think that's what I read somewhere, or heard somewhere. I could be butchering it, but I think it's the right premise, or the right idea. Yeah, people remember stories, people remember characters, and that's why, that's why we have fiction. Because if you just go around saying the facts of, life, no one's gonna give a shit. People will give a shit when they hear this. That's why, those commercial, the in the arms of the angel. Those commercials, they show a specific animal or a specific
and,
dying African child.
Sad stories.
Because people remember characters and stories. They don't remember facts. If you're just 10,000 people die every day in Africa from starvation, you'd be like, oh, that sucks. But you wouldn't,
It's true.
It's when you show the starving child and people pay attention. It's all connected.
Human beings, the storytelling ape.
Interesting. Did you just make that up? Where'd you get that from?
I was listening to a documentary about human beings, and this guy was talking about how Homo sapien, the wise ape, wasn't right, but storytelling ape, and he had the Latin word for it, would be a better word for us.
Interesting. Something that sets humans apart from... Oh my god, we're getting deep. Something that sets humans apart from other animals is that we have language, we're able to share stories. We are able to share ideas.
How creative we are.
Yeah, and that's, you know,
That's what makes us really special.
that is what makes, I mean, I feel freaking dumb saying that we're special, but come on,
We
it's
are.
true.
Compared to other
Human beings
species.
run the world.
Even though we're destroying it, but
Yeah,
let's
but
not
you
get
know
there.
what I mean.
But like
But yeah, like,
our storytelling ability and creativity, all of that, our art,
yeah.
is something to be admired, I believe.
Damn.
Damn.
Well, shit. I'm gonna
Oh.
be like going to bed tonight, like thinking about this stuff and getting all philosophical and shit, and probably have another identity crisis and end up face down on the floor. I'll end up being like, who am I?
What am I?
What is the meaning of life? And Rice, look what you've done to us.
Atoms and molecules working together.
Just looking at your hand like, what is this? Why do I have 5 fingers?
These thumbs are so useful.
Why don't dolphins have thumbs?
We
We all need thumbs.
They're perfect for their environment.
That's true.
Okay, we're rambling. We've gone
Mm-hmm.
way off.
I apologize to our listeners who are just here for Anne Rice and Cry to Heaven because we just took it to a place I did not expect to go. Well,
Starting
down?
at chapter 6.
Yes, next time we will be starting at chapter 6 and we will finish at chapter 10. And it'll be dope.
Yeah.
Are you down to the dregs of your tea yet?
Yep. There's little.
Me too. You can see my little dregs down there.
Oh, do you think we can tell each other's futures?
Oh shit, we're doing
Oh
some
my
divination.
gosh.
Okay, what does mine look like? Yours looks like
Black. The omen. Death.
It's the grim. Yours looks like a cross, maybe a wonky sun. So it means
Does that
you're
mean
gonna suffer, but you're gonna be happy about it.
At least I'll be happy.
All right, I think we've had enough of us today. Our apologies. We'll be more focused next time. Thanks for listening, guys. Follow us on Instagram at love you.
Like, oh shit, we have Instagram.
Hey, if you want to follow me on Instagram, I'm at Crimby. What are you?
What am I? Can you check?
Oh my shit. We don't even know
I
our
think
own
I'm
handles.
Jess.Egan.
Really?
Yeah.
Jess.
You mean
Just
Jess?
Egan24.
Jess.Egan24. That's me.
Follow us on Instagram, yo. And, you know, once we start gaining some traction, we'll make a YouTube and a Twitter and all that shit. Alright. For now, follow us separately on Instagram.
Yeah.
If you give a shit. If you don't give a shit, follow us anyway. Alright, that's enough. Bye.
You want another tea?